Hi, it's Fiona here, and today I want to share with you a yoga practice that we can do to improve our hunched over shoulders or our postural kyphosis. So let's first of all have a look at the mechanics of the body that are leading to this kind of posture. If you're like me and you spent years in the office, hunched over the computer, this might seem very natural to you, but let's have a look at what's going on with the body here. We can begin to think about the body as having this fascial conversation between many different areas in the body. And one of the main ones here is from the front to the back. So we can think of from the front through the pectorals here, through the rib cage and sternum, down through the abdominals, under the pelvis and up over the hips, the sacrum, the back, the upper back and shoulders, and around to the front again. We can think of this as one conveyor belt of fascia, one elastic band of fascial tension, and that any tension at the front, contracting at the front, causes extension at the back, and any contracting at the back causes extension here at the front. So when we have postural kyphosis, there's a tendency to have the contraction coming from the front of the chest, from this space between the heart and the throat. And also the shoulders rounding round here. But there's also a collapsing of this abdominal space, and we kind of fall into this yuck asana. You know, it's like this, kind of letting everything fall forward. So let's have a look at what we can do to open up the front of the chest. We're going to be exploring what we can do to open up the pectoral muscles at the front here, through the sternum, through these intercostals in the rib cage. Also going to be exploring how to feel the rib cage coming away from the neck and the throat. So when we have this very fall forward posture, it can feel as if these collarbones are attached to the throat, when actually they're completely independent, and these can drop more and more over time, allowing more space at the front of the chest. And we're going to be looking at contracting the muscles in the back of the spine. So we've got these beautiful rhomboids that connect the two scapula together towards the spine, and they become like a butterfly clip. So when we contract those scapula, here they are round forward. When we contract them, it's like we pinch that butterfly clip open, the rib cage opens, and the shoulder blades go back, and we begin to get more straightening through the upper back. So one of the things that's very important, though, to keep in mind when we have postural kyphosis, that means it's a habit that we've created. This is not a genetic issue with the vertebra. This is from a lifestyle. Is that we want to be very respectful that for many years, maybe 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, our body has been in this position. And when it's in that position, the back muscles are stretched and elongated, and the front of the chest muscles are contracted. So these muscles at the back are not getting as much blood flow as these muscles at the front. That's part of that sharing of the conveyor belt. All the attention is coming to the front, lots of blood flow happening here, but not so much happening at the back. And that means that the tissue of the muscles dries out, doesn't get as much lymph, doesn't get as much fascia, doesn't get as much blood. Tissues themselves dry out, and then the nerves that flow through those tissues get caught and dried out in the muscle fibers as well. So we want to be very respectful with any practice where we begin to explore a different posture, a different habit of living in the body, that, you know, Rome wasn't built in a day, and that 5 minutes on the yoga mat doesn't automatically change years and years of pattern behavior, especially because those tissues need time to rehydrate, become luscious and plump and full of blood, and then they can release the nerves to open up more gently. So through today's practice, I'm going to do several things. The first one I'm going to show you is our warm-up. This is for everybody, and this is where we can explore the tension that's in the front of the body and where it is. And for most of us with kyphotic posture, that would be a great place just to stay there. But then in part 2 of the video, I'm also going to look at some of the normal Vinyasa movements that we do every day, like our downward dog and like Cobra, maybe plank, and how they can be more, we can use our awareness more in those postures so that we're opening the front of the chest, even in our everyday yoga poses. And then at the end, we will briefly I'll show you a great pranayama practice for opening the chest, and of course we'll have a little time resting on the mat and we can have a visualization to help us with opening the chest. So we've got those 4 phases. Let's begin with this first phase, which you might like to, if you have one, grab yourself a yoga belt or any fabric or actual belt that you can place underneath your lumbar spine. So let's come into a recline position here, supine, lying on the mat, and let's place the belt underneath your lumbar spine. And as you come into this position, let's explore what you can do to engage the muscles of the body and begin to press down the lumbar curve towards that belt that's lying on the floor. So as you grab your abdominal area, what muscles can you use to cause some tension here in the abdominal area? And perhaps you might like to think about contracting the muscle at the front of the lumbar spine. See what turns on when you give your body that instruction. So as we hug the front of the spine, naturally our lumbar comes more towards the floor, and that is generally our psoas muscle that we're using there. It's there to protect the lumbar spine. So by engaging the front of the spine, the muscles at the front, by hugging that central core, whatever language works for you, let's see if we can get some tension here in the abdominal region between the bottom of the ribcage and the top of the pelvis. And you want to get to the kind of point where you can put pressure onto this belt and maybe not even move the belt. This would be a great preparation for those more advanced yoga poses, some of the headstands and handstands. We want to have this great sense of tension here in the power in the abdominal. But for us, we're using it really to explore, can I contract my abdominals, engage my abdominals without engaging my upper chest? Because this is what is generally happening for those of us with the posture of kyphosis. We have our powerhouse here at the throat center and the heart center. We're very strong at contracting here, and when we want to contract the abdominals, usually the first thing we do is contract the top of the ribs here, the top of the throat and the chest. So I'm asking you today to explore contracting in the ribcage by hugging the front of the lumbar spine and completely releasing and allowing the front of the throat, the neck, the top of the ribs here to be totally relaxed. And for many of us, this is a great kyphosis exercise. So I would encourage you to stay here and explore here. If you're finding that you can create some tension here in the abdominals while having absolute relaxation and freedom in the ribcage here, you could use this warm-up to add in the arms and the legs. We're going to warm through the whole body, ready for our yoga practice today. So let's explore what might happen if we have the consciousness of contracting the abdominal area, particularly that psoas at the front of the lumbar spine, releasing the front of the chest to be totally wobbly and jelly-like, and then add in some arm movements. So here I've just got my upper arms adducted away from the body at about 90 degrees, then bending at the elbows 90 degrees. I'm just using the forearm to rotate the humerus. What is your body going to do? Can your brain allow the tension to remain in the abdominal and loosen off entirely? So, or you could do some full arm extensions here. Again, we're interested in what is happening with the tension here in the abdominals and not in the heart center and throat center. And can you keep that? I'm just not moving this arm so I don't knock over the microphone for you, but you can imagine, like the other one, extending all the way through. Then if you feel that is possible for you and that your brain is enjoying the retraining, that the tension comes from here in the power center, not from the heart center, what could happen if we add in some legs? So again, hugging the psoas to the front of the lumbar spine, creating tension in the abdominals. Let's explore what that feels like as we move the legs keeping the tension in the abdominals, releasing all tension in the upper chest. You might even, as you move these legs, you might like to put some gentle pressure onto the rib cage and pull it down, just to remind the body to relax that upper chest while it's engaging the abdominals. So we're really disconnecting for the brain the abdominals from the pecs. And this could turn into a whole lot of abdominal exercises for you. If this is where you feel like you want to add some strength, you could explore how to use your legs in different ways with your contraction at the abdominals and releasing here at the chest, and build up some strength in the abdominal area. So now let's see how we could apply this to some yoga poses that we do all the time in Vinyasa. Let's swap over now to the prone position here, with the belly onto the mat and just connecting with the ground. Another thing about the Kyphosis posture is we tend to be a little ungrounded because all that tension is going so high in the body. So just see, where are you making contact with the mat? And then experiment with the contracting at the front of the lumbar spine. And let's explore one of our common Vinyasa poses, anything towards that Cobra style of pose. So can you contract your lumbar, the front of the lumbar, and allow the power of that movement to lift the chest off the floor? And here we're not guiding with the head runs and relaxed, but we're allowing the contraction in the abdominals only to power up, contract those shoulder blades, and open the front of the chest. Just explore that several times, making sure that the first movement comes always from the lumbar contraction at the front of the lumbar spine. And as you lift up, not with the head being completely relaxed, you might want to look down to check that that is relaxed. Contracting through the shoulder blades, and even if you wanted to, contracting at the front of the lumbar spine, coming up further, but keeping that relaxation at the front of the chest. So this is how we can apply this awareness in various yoga poses. Then another common vinyasa we might come up to here onto, say for example, we can pause it in all fours, but then we might like to think about the plank. That as we come up here, the kyphotic approach would be like this, that we're putting all of our weight over the hands. What can we do when we contract that lumbar, hug the muscles at the front of the lumbar spine, drop those shoulders back and loosen off the neck? So this is a way that you could incorporate your awareness of your kyphosis into your daily vinyasa. And we can even explore that with a downward dog. Here we don't want to be too worried about the back of the legs, but we might like to think about where the contact is happening with the floor, first of all. So how those feet or toes and how the palms of our hands and our finger pads are connecting with the floor. And from that place, contract the front of the lumbar spine, hugging that front of the spine and allowing that to pull the rib cage away from the throat and straightening through the upper back. And I just encourage you to play around here in your own time. In the video, we're limited to a certain amount of time, but you might like to sway from one side to the other, drop one shoulder or the other, come quite deep, dropping the heart, or coming forward more into the plank. And if downward dog doesn't feel right for you to explore those, because we want to maintain that gentle consciousness and not overstretching those back muscles that have already been stretched a lot in our lifetime, you might want to experiment with some other ways of doing downward dog. So we could think about some kind of happy puppy variation, really dropping the heart there. But as you do that, make sure you're listening to your shoulders, because those tissues can be quite stuck. So another variation would be to come into an extended child. And again, really exploring how we can drop the chest forward. Drop the heart through the knees even, and allow the neck and throat to be free from the ribcage. And as we're just exploring vinyasa, say from sun salutations, we don't have any twists here, but as we're in extended child, we can just explore a little bit of adding a side extension to the extended child. So moving your hands to one side, again feeling that dropping of the heart, allowing those tissues to open. And then you might like to as well explore twisting in this position. So listening to those upper shoulders, what do they want to do? Explore your own body. Then coming back to the middle. And back to this other side just for balance. And again, let yourself take the time that you need to explore some twisting in the spine there. And then let us also explore how we can be aware of our kyphosis in a standing position. So just for balance, we might want to push through gently, letting the heart lead towards a back bend here. So just letting that heart lead, shoulders dropping down back, then coming up into a standing position. And how can we use the wall here as our friend? Keeping your heels about 2 inches away from the wall. Allow your buttocks to make contact with the wall. And see if we can get the rib cage, the bottom of the rib cage onto the wall. So we do that by engaging those psoas, that hugging sense at the front of the lumbar spine, creating so much stability and support for us. So keeping the rib cage, lower rib cage in contact with the wall, can we then explore putting the shoulder blades onto the wall nice and flat? So instead of their normal rounded, can we lay them flat onto the wall? And here you are in everyday life, standing in the post office queue, and we're even now exploring how to open the chest and allow the ribs to drop forward away from the throat. So you can think of these like your those vendors with the tray of goods here. And that tray is connected to the shoulders with some tape. How can we loosen off this tape and just really let that tray just fall open? So that's what we want, is that for the heart space, the throat space, to be receiving its own sunlight and its own air rather than being shadowed and covered by the head and neck. So wherever you are standing up, you can be checking how your kyphosis is going, engaging that abdominal tension, releasing the upper throat and neck, enjoying yoga wherever you are. And let's bring that also here into a seated position, which you may feel free to elevate your seat if you wish. Can give a lot of comfort once we get away from those crunching the psoas here. We really ideally want these hip bones higher than these knee bones. And then exploring the same experience with the wall, can we get the lower part of the rib cage in contact with the wall and the scapulas at the same time, and the back of the head? So this great practice for us right here. We're doing all the yoga we could ever need to do. And let's add in a pranayama practice. And I love, for opening the chest, I love the humming breath. So I've had many teachers who have different ways of doing the humming breath. What we want to do is on the in-breath, we breathe in through the nose. On the out-breath, we want to create a humming sound. We're going to create a whole lot of resonance and space throughout the chest, the throat, and here the ears and the back of the skull. So you can breathe in and just close the teeth and breathe out. So or you can breathe in and put the lips together. Or to create a whole lot of vibration, you can vibrate the lips. So breathing in with the nose. and out through the lips. So choose any variation of those or your own preferred lip position. And as you do this practice, we also put the fingers in the ears. And you can see how that's going to open the chest. We get to put the scapulas against the wall. You can even put the elbows against the wall, so nice and open. And then the sound is really reverberating. So I'm going to do 3 rounds now to give you an idea. But in your own time, you might do this for several rounds. 20 rounds for 5 minutes, something like that. Okay, so breathing in. Just enjoy that breathing practice for as long as you wish, opening the space through the chest, getting the great feedback from the wall. Then when you're ready, come down into Savasana. And even as we do that, when we're setting up our Savasana, we can get lots of good help from the floor, giving us information about where that rib cage is, because if we can keep the rib cage in contact with the mat and we've got the legs here, we know that as we contract that psoas, we're getting that wonderful lengthening and contraction at the same time that we love so much in yoga. And we can practice getting the scapulas flat onto the mat rather than rounded up. So you've got lots of great feedback here. You can also watch where your elbow creases are, keeping them facing up. Or if it's quite rounded for you, you can even cheat a little bit and have them rounded, facing out towards you here on the video, but away from the body. That helps us rotate the head of the humerus out of that contraction into the pectoral muscles. And as we rest in Savasana, perhaps even letting go of any of those instructions, just allowing the body to soak in all this experience, we can visualize this area of the chest releasing and area of the throat just opening and releasing. We can think about, in Vedic astrology, we talk about the Ishta and the Kashta, that the good planets, they share their good fortune so well in our charts, but they keep any bad luck to themselves, whereas the bad planets, they share any misfortune that they're experiencing, they share generously, and they hold on to what's good for their own selves. And those of us who have this kyphotic posture, we tend to be more that type of person that shares out the good that we have, but those sadnesses and disappointments, the misunderstandings, the hurt and the pain, we tend to keep it here in the center of the chest and the throat. And by contracting around the top here, we can control and we can force all of that stuff to remain in the body. But what yoga is offering us here is the chance to freely give away all of the bad, all of the misfortune, the sadness, the loss, the misunderstandings, the hurt and the pain, the anger, the fear, anything that is going on that we're trying to hold on to, that we think we're doing a good job holding on to it. Let us today experiment with being the opposite. Let us release that openly into the ether, allowing creation to recycle that pent-up energy into something beautiful. In order to do that, we must freely release all of that pent-up sadness. So let it go, flow out of you generously. Give it away generously. It's probably the opposite of what you're used to. Now let's take 10 minutes of resting here, practicing generously giving away all of our hurts and desires. As I leave you here to do your own generous releasing of anything that you are storing in your chest to protect the world from. Instead, I want you to practice letting it go and leave you to do that in your own time. I'm going to very gently bow to you to say thank you for your practice and your intention in yoga. And namaste. And I look forward to seeing you soon.